Good morning, guys. Hope you're all well. Let's jump into it. So, first thing to talk about is obviously the metals were going crazy. Gold yesterday actually increased more than the entire market cap of Bitcoin, which is mental to think about. But the reason I bring it up more importantly is there's been a lot of grave dancing on Bitcoin, especially from a lot of big traders, a lot of TradFi people. They've been like, trolling Bitcoin for underperforming against the metals, also trolling the altcoin gang about how everybody's stupid, crypto was the dumb move. They've been telling everybody for years, blah, blah, blah. You have to remember how long these gold and silver moves took to play out. Not saying they're not good trades, of course they were, but just as in previous bull markets when every altcoin went up a million X, Bitcoin went on a tear, everybody's a genius in a bull market. Everybody's a genius when the price goes up. And it's funny, I see a lot of similarity between these more TradFi people now grave dancing on Bitcoin as like the scammy KOLs that all blew up from the last bull market when they bought Solana or they bought some other random altcoin and it did 1000x because everything went up and now they're a giga genius. In the sense that the psyop of them knowing more and having this, grand insight that's untouchable is much easier to buy. But call this cope, and it's very easy to call this cope. Now's the time when you need to lock in more than ever. Now's the time where you need to not get psyoped by that. And when you see all the grave dancing, when you see that it's over, when you see that it's stupid, you need to lock in and focus now. And actually nothing has made me more convinced that we will see a massive pump into Bitcoin, coming into the end of this year. Now I know obviously everybody wants Bitcoin to go crazy in the next 10 days. Maybe it does. But what do I always preach here every day? We look at the highest probability plays. But this sort of grave dancing, it's over on Bitcoin now with everything else pumping, really makes me think and gives me more confidence that we are going to see, this big rally at some point in 2026. Because again, as we've been preaching here on the channel, this high time frame structure is still intact. Like if gold had been ripping, right, and we started to come down, if gold and silver and all these things had started ripping and we were doing this, yeah, I'd be thinking, maybe they're onto something here. It could be Jova for us. I would like to see how things played out. We still do have this whole zone to hold. Again, I won't say it's over until we start, capitulating from this zone here, from this, this final line in the sand. But if we had been breaking down here and retesting this as everything else had been ripping, I would be becoming very bearish. I'll be honest with you. But we're not. We're maintaining this high time frame structure. Yes, there's not tons of liquidity coming into Bitcoin now, and it's not up only. But that doesn't mean you can't make money trading. That's something also that I don't want to sound like a smart ass here because, I'm always a big believer in the fact that you don't know what you don't know. But this whole Bitcoin's a horrible trade. I saw, for example, somebody, I'm not going to mention names, but somebody say the other day on Twitter, like, oh, you need to leave Bitcoin alone in the midterms. It's a stupid play until at least the summer of that year. Like, what, bro? It's a highly volatile asset. Volatility means that you can make money because there's moves, whether you can long or whether you can short. And a lot of these guys that are really well known, even TradFi guys, hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, they make big trades, they make a lot of money. But it almost seems to me sometimes that they only know one way of trading, which is buy when something, buy and something goes up. Because if I understand, like, don't get me wrong, yes, you can move in and hit that gold trade and ride the train to, Valhalla, fine, so be it. That's a great trade, and I'm obviously not going to shit on that at all. But to look at an asset that's so volatile and gives us, huge plays like this, like, look at this. Like, look at all this volatility. To look at an asset that gives us all this volatility to trade, and all of these moves and all of these reasonably predictable ranges that we call here every day, in the Telegram or on YouTube, to call that an asset that you want to stay away from and, is a poor trade, to me seems delusional. That would only be the case if you're looking for an up-only asset and that's the only way that you trade. And in that case, yeah, fair enough, you want to just full port silver gold and ride it to the moon. But if you're looking to be a trader and you're telling me that Bitcoin is a poor asset to trade, I don't see that and I don't buy it. But anyway, intro yap over. I wanted to talk a little bit about that though, because there's not too much to say about Bitcoin here. It's fairly obvious. The plays from yesterday were very nice. It traveled through our range very well. I've obviously updated the lines and our zones here that we're looking for. We've had this trade already back into this zone. We've hit our head. It's looking now like we'll come back to test this zone here at around 87K. Ideally, we get a bounce off there. If not, again, we'll look to come back and test this 86 300 zone, 250. We'll go into more details on this on the order flow chart in a second, but this is what I'm expecting today is we'll probably come back and have a retest, look for a bounce. If not, and the bounce fails, we'll come back down and test this zone below. But again, if we want to break to the upside, we want to do this. We want to come back, bounce here, maybe even have a second retest, look to come here, put in a higher low and look to break back through and head up towards 90K. But the general idea is that we're just going to be looking for range bound plays. You know, we are still in a downtrend on the higher time frame here, as we can see. We tried to reclaim, we rejected. So what we're seeing here is, and I'm making this very messy now, for us to, in the coming weeks, push into now a new wave of upwards momentum, we want to hold this here as the next higher low and start to press on from here, make a higher high, another higher low, and start to do something like this, right? That's the simple playbook we're looking for on the high time frame. And then likewise, we really, really want to hold this 86, 85K as we've been talking about, which it does seem like it's quite possible that we'll test this in the coming days. Okie dokie, so jumping into the order flow chart here, this is what I'm expected to see. Look, we can see we're in a massive downtrend here. Of course, we've got the New York Open coming up. We've seen a massive sell-off here, which has primarily been a puke in the open interest, so longs kind of getting out of their positions. We've started to see some longs building up here. And what's interesting here, we've started to see the price dropping off as the open interest is increasing, which means people are getting short around here. There's lots of shorts building, and they're piling up around this daily point of control. Now, again, we're still early in the day, so the point of control will, is to be taken with a pinch of salt, but you can see a lot of the volumes going on around here, and we're creating this compression leading into the most volatile time of the day with lots of shorts piled on. So it's going to be interesting to see if some counter pressure comes in, or if these guys will get rewarded for their efforts and we do capitulate. Now, to the downside here as well, you see these two green lines here, the low volume nodes that I mentioned. These were the lines from our trading view chart. And if you've got a keen eye here, you'll also see that these align nicely with the weekly low, sort of, almost, and the weekly value area low. Of course, our weekly value area low is going to be the first one that we'd expect. So it would make sense for some of these shorts to get rewarded. We bounce off the daily value area low, even if we kind of continue to there and these guys get further rewarded and we don't see much buyer desire. Buyer desire is crazy, but anyway, we don't see strong buying want to step in here. We can expect to retrace back to the weekly low. And I could see something here, what would make sense of us wicking this. This could catch people offside quite nicely, because we'd want to hold the value area low. You will almost certainly see some people try to step in, but if these buyers then get pushed out and start to capitulate and people want to go short, this next move down would most likely be very violent. As the people that stepped in at the value area low to try to support the price would most likely then start to say, okay, maybe this is Jova, let's step in. But if we get this massive wick to fill and then we start to see some support here, this is where you could get a lot of these people offside, and then we could start to continue to the upside. And so that would be a play that would make sense to me. We'll just run through it again. Is, we come here, we chop around for a bit, we come to test the value area low. It'd be great that for the week. If we do, get some support here and it does get rewarded, great. We can continue to the upside and then come back to test wherever the daily point of control is at that time. But it's also not too likely that, while we're down here, we sweep this weekly low, sweep this liquidity, and then start to find some support to then, start to put in a reversal. Again, important to note, we're coming towards the end of the week, so typically people will start to, institutions and funds will want to start de-risking. It's also the end of the month. So something that you need to start thinking about in terms of where big money will be positioned and the types of things big money will be thinking about. But that's what I'd expect. Some chop going into the New York Open, or maybe even some sort of fake pump here up to the VWAP, either the weekly or the current daily VWAP. And then we see reversal here, reversal, boom, and we start to then, horrible drawing there at the end, but yeah, you kind of get the idea. Zooming out though, obviously if we do start to lose this weekly low and we don't really get a bounce here, it's not gonna look good. But if you're in the Telegram, we'll follow that step by step and you'll see the plays and thesis that I will have in mind should that occur. So if you're not part of it already, make sure you join the free Telegram, first line in the description. Okay, and last thing, as the title said, is some potential banger meme coin plays. Now, this is just sort of spawned in. It's been a while since the token launched, but the too long didn't read of this is it might be Roaring Kitty, who was part of the whole GameStop saga. People have suggested that he's behind it. Not sure if I buy that he actually launched the token himself, because I feel like insiders who would know would have already sent this to 50 million already. However, he has been posting some content. It seems a little bit psyopy, so I will not be buying in here. Again, I've got the fib levels. I'd want to see some I'd want to see some real evidence that there was actually going to be some push behind this and it's not just some kind of cabal psyop play. But, you know, if we did see this and we kind of got a 10 mil entry or even kind of an 8 mil retest, there's a good chance I'll probably throw some Solana at this and see how it goes. But definitely want to keep an eye on because, again, it's all narrative based. Obviously, if Roaring Kitty's going to support it and post more content, you can expect that this is probably going to put in some crazy moves based on the trenches, but just want to keep an eye on. And like I say, if he does keep supporting it, he made some bull post. If he even tweets this, you know, I mean, he's not going to tweet the CA, but if he starts talking about barking puppy and puts the hashtag or something like that, this will teleport to, you know, 50 or 100 million before you can even blink. So yeah, potentially huge upside play here. And last play, you've already heard me talking about this in previous videos. We came back to our entry here, the entry we were looking for, around 8 mil. Again, playing the fibs because this is just what everybody looks at. We're not doing order flow analysis on meme coins, and I think technical analysis on meme coins in general anyway is a bit of a meme within itself. But one, I know who is involved in the team with this. Very, very bullish. You know, everybody knows that it's him as well. The kind of FUD so far has been that this is, you know, some big cabal insider play. I know for a fact that it's actually the furthest thing from that. And this is definitely one of the most organic coins that is on the market at the moment. I know all the big guys from Fartcoin are in supporting this. People from the startup company that him was pushing previously on the Believe launchpad. They're all supporting, and I think it's a great narrative. You know, all the metals are pumping, and I mentioned this yesterday. What's the big thing that sends cryptos? Yeah, okay, yes, you can have a cute character, you can have all of this, but that's kind of been done to death. The main thing is narratives. Like I always look at SPX 6900. That's one of my favorite meme coins. For me, it's about a narrative that can survive not being relevant and not being posted about 24/7. It's something that can be relevant whether it's in fashion or it's not in fashion. You know, if something's a news-based thing or if something is like, you know, a character like this penguin thing from the White House, who cares about that? You know, if the White House didn't post that, that's a 10 mil topper. I'm sorry. And how much staying power does that have, you know? It's very rare you get things like that. Like you look at Pepe, but Pepe's used in stickers, Pepe's used in GIFs, Pepe's used in political posts, Pepe's used in, you know, WhatsApp messages, right? So it always has that relevance and it's always funny. But something like Copper Inu, I see it much like SPX 6900 because it's got that cult narrative behind it. At the end of the day, what meta we're in right now, we're in the meta of metals, is boomer metals going on, and this, just how SPX 6900 is trying to vamp the stock market, this is trying to vamp the metal market. That's the same narrative. And the fact that it's a dog, the fact that it's Copper Inu, is so perfect because copper in of itself as a metal is a meme. You know, when people think of copper, what do you think of? You think of these big, massive chunks of metal that are worth nothing. You know, you got to carry around kilos and kilos of this crap for it to be worth anything. Most people actually just think of it as crackheads stealing copper wiring from the roof, or some Chinese tech farm sweatshop, all with little processors. And it's like, you've missed copper, you've missed the metals trade, and what are you going to do now? As a DJ in the trenches, are you going to go try galaxy brain yourself and go chase this new market that you don't know anything about? You know, you say, I'm sick of losing, I'm going to go back to the traditional markets and chase metal. Okay, sure, you're going to go chase a market that's way older than you, that you have no idea about. So you've been losing in the meme coin trenches and you're going to now chase the metals market that's already all-time high. Or are you going to stick to what you know and pump the best narrative in the trenches right now? Because at the end of the day, why buy copper when you can buy copper Inu? And that's all I'm going to say on it. So you've got the levels on Bitcoin, you've got the plays that we're going to take on the high time frame, on the lower time frame. We've looked at the order flow. You've got a couple of potential banger meme coins here. Potential being that the barking puppy depends on the narrative being pushed by Roaring Kitty and how that develops over the rest of the day. Copper Inu, I'm super bullish on this. Great narrative, great people involved pushing it, and it's as organic as you're going to get for a trench runner. So send it to 100 million with haste. So if you like the video, you want to see more of this, make sure you join the free Telegram, first line in the description. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, put on the notification bell so you see when I drop this video every day. And other than that, good luck, have fun, and I'll see you in the books.